Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So welcome to another new video on my YouTube channel. Today we are going into the United States to Point Roberts. So Point Roberts is a little town of the Washington state. And geographically, it actually belongs to the very southern tip of the peninsula of Vancouver. Okay, so here we are. And Point Roberts is just about 30 minutes drive from downtown Vancouver. And today we are visiting the Lily Point Marine Park. And it takes a little while to go down the slope of the hiking trail to get to the beach. So it's just super quiet over here, and I spot a cliff with a forest growing on top. Wow, that's so unique. I've never seen something like that in Vancouver before. So there's no other humans here other than me and my parents. And it's kind of like a private little paradise here. And now I want to use my fountain pen and then watercolors to capture this spectacular landscape right in front of me, starting with the contour outline of the cliff, which is really bumpy, following what I see using almost a blind contour technique to draw, so the speed is faster, and then the bottom of the cliff with driftwoods lining along the bottom of it, and some more organic shapes of driftwoods and the curve of the bay. So this curve dividing the beach and the sea is very important to establish the sense of perspective. And now I just drew the horizon line and then the cityscape of Vancouver, the skyscrapers of downtown Vancouver seen from the United States here, and then the mountains in the northern part of Vancouver, the contour outline. And yeah, this is a very special experience sitting here at Point Roberts, specifically at Lily's Point, and then adding a bit of foliage and building suggestions along that horizon line. Now I need to come back to the foreground. My central focus is the cliff and the foliage growing on it. Yeah, so just tackling this bushy area here on the left side, using a lot of squiggly lines to suggest the fluffy form of bushes. Now I'm drawing the tree trunks of these trees growing on top of the cliff, and then drawing the contour outlines of these little pine trees, probably evergreens of various heights. So these trees on the right-hand side of the cliff, they're seemingly shorter because they're moving away from us. So in terms of perspective, objects, including their heights and widths, when they're moving away from us, they are getting foreshortened. In other words, looking shorter or narrower. Now I'm just shading the bottom of the forest with pretty solid brown ink. Very quick hatching lines, and then some organic little squiggles for the branch and leafy texture of the trees. So when you're sketching nature, especially in the wilderness, just give yourself a lot of room for freedom of expression. If you do it way too slowly and trying to be neat, it's going to be pretty hard to capture the quality of these nature elements that you're trying to capture. And many of these lines are actually done from impression and not just mere copying of the physical look of these folds of the cliff. So I'm trying to inject my feeling, my sensation about these jagging lines into various hand pressures. So I am spiritually interacting with the view in front of me, truly feeling the lively spirit of this place, and then pouring out my sensations through these sensational lines. So some of these lines may or may not be there, or I might be missing capturing some of the folds, and that's okay. My point is to capture the spirit and my personal interaction with this place. Okay, just adding a bit of thickness for the beach, and then starting to add these rocks and pebbles. So on the beach, there are like a small number of rocks that stands out pretty well in terms of sizes and shapes. So yeah, so I just bring those out more clearly. And for the other pebbles, when they're very, very small, I just use very quick circular lines to get those done. And now just adding those delicate folds of the clouds above the mountains, and then quick dashing lines for the gently rippled water of the sea. And when we're drawing sea waves or rippling water, we don't have to draw every single fold of the waves. You can leave some blank space for the viewers to imagine the movement of the water rather than drawing every single fold of the sea waves or lapping water. Now it's time to have fun painting watercolors. So I just starting with the sky as always, whether it was clear water, and putting on this warm yellow for the early evening sky. This is a diluted yellow ochre. So in the late afternoon sky, we can see a stronger tint of yellow, as well as the staining color of this stronger yellow ochre on the foliage, where it's fully exposed to the sunshine. And now it's wetting the water area, which is also catching the warm luminosity from the sun as well, a diluted yellow ochre, a few brushstrokes for the surface of the sea here. So the very first step that you should be focusing on your watercolor painting is the brightest areas, especially on a sunny day. Those areas exposed to the sunshine, being illuminated by the warmth of sun. Okay, so the beach is actually mostly a shaded area. So I'm playing with a blend of gray, which I mix with blue, purple, and green, and brown or burnt sienna, and yellow ochre. So it's a blend of about 3 colors for the beach, for the pebbly area. Let it dry before adding higher contrast. Now adding a diluted yellow ochre for the cliff as well. So the color of this cliff is very unique. It contains stripes of yellow, orange, and brown. So this is the lightest value that I could see. Now mixing yellow ochre with a little bit of orange for some of the stripes that's bulging out. And this is just a fabulous, amazing piece of work designed by Mother Nature. And I also blended on a little bit of burnt sienna in diluted versions, mixing with the golden, the sandy color of the cliff, and some raw umber for the folding areas. Okay, so I'm gonna let the cliff area to dry off a bit more before adding more values and contrast. Now I am adding these stripes of cerulean blue mixed with a little bit of green. So again, as I mentioned before, the bottom of the sky is usually of a turquoise color later in the afternoon. So just adding that very gently, diluting it on paper as well, using horizontal brush marks to follow the rhythm of the mix of thin clouds and the sky. And just wetting the mountain area with clear water and the super diluted ultramarine blue. Wet onto wet, a more concentrated cobalt blue containing less water, and just leaving the bottom of the mountain a lighter value, a higher contrast for the very top of the mountain. So just having intentionally giving the bottom of the mountain a misty effect, and also a nice sense of distance. Objects in the distance, they could look blurry than the areas in the very foreground. First layer for this bushy area, this is a mix of hooker's green and a little bit of yellow ochre. Alright, and it's time to add some darker values for the forest, lining up on top of the cliff. So just mixing hooker's green and a tiny bit of yellow ochre containing less water as well. Yeah, pretty high ratio of hooker's green just for the tips of these trees. The middle and bottom is magically illuminated by the afternoon sunshine. I'm also adding some retouches of more concentrated yellow ochre. Alright, so just feel free to add your retouching colors if you think that you need more or that those colors should be stronger. Just make sure you add it when your previous layer is pretty much close to dry, so that stronger value is not faded out by the previous wet layer. And the bottom of the forest is a much stronger shade color of green. So this is a mix of hooker's green and burnt sienna. If you want to show the luminosity of a strong lighting condition, you do need to add your darkest darks, like what I'm doing right now, okay? Yeah. Adding only the stronger, like those yellows, yellow greens, is just not enough for the sense of drama in your landscape painting. And this step also requires a bit of precision and control because these trees are pretty small. You don't want your darkest darks to flood into your illuminated colors of the forest. All right, so the shine should still be there in the middle of the shade colors. All right, so now it's time to move on to shade those clouds very quickly with leftover bluish gray. The mix of cobalt blue, purple, and a little bit green diluted with a lot of water. And the tiny cityscape of Vancouver in the far distance is glowing in yellow mist. Okay, just adding diluted yellow ochre for those abstract buildings there. Okay, so now I see the previous layer of the cliff area is pretty much all dried. So now I'm ready to add my finer renderings with a small tip water brush. As you can see, my brushstroke is pretty strong and not being faded out. The color is staying very saturated. So that's another layer of yellow ochre mixed with a little bit of burnt sienna. For the bottom part is a shaded area of the cliff, is raw umber, where you can mix cobalt blue into burnt sienna and dilute it with quite a bit of water. The shade is not super strong. Okay, again playing with water control, but still you want to show the strong fold of these rocky areas. That many of these rocks are actually bulging out. The other areas are actually sinking down. And now I'm ready to paint the next layer for this bushy area using more concentrated, mostly just hooker's green with a tiny bit of yellow ochre. And just using these quick punches to get this strong green in. Okay, so now it's time to move on to the next area. I want to shade the beach with more intense colors, like this burnt sienna for the driftwood, and also using the residue of burnt sienna for some of these rocks. Tumbling with the seaweed. So yeah, the seaweed is actually a pretty intense brown purple tone. A slightly stronger bluish gray for the bank area there in the slight distance. Alright, so now I want to add a bit more contrast for the cliff as well as the bottom of the forest with slightly denser colors. As you can see, the contrast is here when you're working wet on dry. So make sure your previous layer is pretty much all dried, so you're really able to push these shade colors on. And a stronger sepia or raw umber just to go around some of these sharper edges of the rocky area here on the bottom. Thin brush strokes for the beautiful stripes. And just aiming to use these thin brush strokes to depict the beauty made by Mother Nature. Yeah, a lot of delicate thin stripes that is actually pretty hard to paint, but just trying my best to get as much details in as I can for the cliff. Okay, so I think I kind of captured its essence. Now, I'm ready to paint the reflection of the sea surface. So the reflection is a beautiful blend of multiple colors and values as well. So this is a play of Hooker's green, yellow ochre, and burnt sienna. Okay, and also a little bit of cobalt blue as well, about 4 colors, and also using thin brush strokes by holding my brush about 90 degrees to the surface of the paper. Playing with more ratios of Hooker's green here on the bottom, as well as burnt sienna to shade that green to a muted kind. Yeah, and the water is getting a little choppy here, so my brush stroke is following the rhythm of the water here. The value of green is also pretty diluted there, and a stronger stripe of reflection there, and the stripe there in the far distance is very thin because of perspective. Now it's time to add a stronger green value on top of the first layer that I just painted. So again, this is very much Hooker's green mixed with a little bit of cobalt blue, so it's a turquoise color. And some final little polish for the water, the reflection, leaving enough areas to let the water shine and not overpaint. Now I'm adding a next layer for the bushy area here, using even more concentrated green, so Hooker's green with a bit of burnt sienna. Again, traces of brush mark is fine to show the texture for the foliage. And lastly, I want to paint the beautiful shades for the little gentle cloud floating on top of the sky. So this is a mix of cobalt blue, royal purple, and a tiny bit of green diluted with a lot of water. And here it contains less water because the shade is heavier as I observe, and also having a higher ratio of royal purple, just so the gray looks much more lively than just mixing water and black. So thank you so much for watching this video, everyone. If you like it, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. So I try to update my channel with 2 to 3 new videos every week. Lots of inspirations for you. And stay tuned for my next video where I'll be sketching at a cafe at Point Roberts, having a lovely breakfast and enjoying the views around me. See you again very soon next time, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.